Find a quiet place, a comfortable position, and let the sounds of the world fade away. Gently close your eyes now as we begin. Let us drift back across the great, dark sea of time to an age of heroes and gods, of bronze and myth. The war is over. The great city of Troy, after 10 long years of siege, has fallen to dust and embers. The victorious Greek kings and their armies turn their ships for home, their hearts heavy with war but yearning for the embrace of family and the familiar shores of their kingdoms. Among them is Odysseus, the clever king of Ithaca, a small island kingdom nestled in the Ionian Sea. He is a man known for his wit, his cunning, and his unyielding spirit. For 10 years he fought beneath the walls of Troy, and now all he desires is the sight of his own rocky shores, his faithful wife Penelope, and his son Telemachus, who was just an infant when he sailed away. The journey home should be a simple matter of weeks, but the fates, those ancient weavers of destiny, have other plans for our hero. The gods, who watch from their throne on Mount Olympus, are not yet finished with him. His voyage begins not with a gentle breeze, but with the stirrings of divine will. As his 12 ships cut through the wind-dark sea, a storm, born from the breath of a displeased god, scatters his fleet like fallen leaves. They are driven off course, pushed into the unknown waters at the edge of the world, where maps fade into myth and the stars are strange and new. Here, the line between the natural and the supernatural blurs. Here, every island holds a secret, every cove a potential danger or a tempting enchantment. Their first landing is on the island of the Cicones, where a brief, brutal battle serves as a grim reminder that the ways of war are hard to leave behind. A victory quickly turns to loss as the survivors, mourning their fallen comrades, are driven back to sea by a punishing gale. For 9 days and 9 nights, they are tossed upon the waves, helpless, until they drift to a shore unlike any they have ever known. This is the land of the Lotus-Eaters, a gentle, dreamlike people who offer Odysseus's men their most treasured food. The honey-sweet lotus flower. Those who taste it are overcome by a blissful apathy. All memory of home, of family, of duty, dissolves into a peaceful, contented haze. They no longer wish to leave. They desire only to stay forever in that sun-drenched land, eating the flower that erases all sorrow and all longing. Odysseus, seeing the danger in this paradise, must act with a heavy heart. He physically drags his weeping, entranced men back to the ships, binding them to the rowing benches. He understands a truth they have forgotten, that a life without purpose, without the bittersweet ache of longing and the drive for home, is no life at all. He forces them away from that shore of forgetting, back onto the vast, unforgiving sea. Their journey continues, deeper into the realm of legend. The next island they find is lush and wild, home to countless goats, a seeming paradise for hungry, weary sailors. But across a narrow strait, they see smoke rising from another shore. It is a land that seems inhabited, yet strangely silent. This is the land of the Cyclops, a race of giant, one-eyed shepherds, monstrous and lawless, driven by a mix of curiosity and the customs of hospitality for in this age. A stranger might be a god in disguise. Odysseus decides to investigate. He takes his best ship and 12 of his finest men, carrying a goatskin of powerful, unmixed wine as a gift. They find a massive cave, clearly the home of a giant. It is filled with pens of lambs and kids, and shelves laden with colossal cheeses. The giant himself is absent, out with his flocks. His men urge him to take what they need and flee. But Odysseus, his famous curiosity getting the better of him, insists on waiting. He wants to see this creature, to receive a gift of hospitality, as is the custom. It is a decision born of a hero's pride, and it will have terrifying consequences. As dusk falls, the ground trembles. The Cyclops, Polyphemus, son of the sea god Poseidon, returns. He rolls a stone across the mouth of the cave, a boulder so massive that 24 wagons could not move it, trapping them inside his dark, cavernous lair. The firelight flickers across his single, glaring eye as he spots the tiny, terrified men. Odysseus steps forward, mustering his courage, and speaks of the sacred laws of hosts and guests, invoking the name of Zeus. But the Cyclops only laughs. He declares that his kind do not care for the gods or their laws, and in a horrific display of his savage nature, he snatches up 2 of Odysseus's men, dashes their heads against the rock, and eats them raw. The survivors can only watch in frozen terror, their exit blocked, their hope turning to despair. They are trapped in the den of a monster, far from the sun, far from the sea, far from home. Odysseus, the man of cunning, must now find a way to outwit a creature of pure, brute force, or he and his remaining men will meet the same gruesome end. Their stories unheard, their journey ending in the darkness of a giant's cave. The night is long, and the mind of Odysseus races, searching for a plan, a trick, a glimmer of hope in the suffocating blackness. The winds, once so stubbornly against us, began to whisper a different tune, a soft, insistent murmur that rippled across the dark waters, tugging at our sails like a gentle hand. The tension that had held the fleet in its grip for so long seemed to loosen, thread by thread. On the shore, the last fires of Troy were now just faint embers, distant memories swallowed by the encroaching night. We were leaving, truly leaving. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of salt and the vast, open sea. A quiet sense of purpose settled over the men. Oars dipped into the water with a steady, rhythmic splash, a heartbeat pulling us away from the land of ghosts and ashes. Each stroke was a severance, a commitment to the journey ahead, wherever it might lead. The past was a fading shoreline, and the future was the unbroken horizon. Days bled into one another, marked only by the rising and setting of the sun. The sea was our world now, a shifting canvas of blues and grays. And then, one evening, a smudge of land appeared, faint and purple against the dusk. Ismaris, the city of the Cicones. We approached the caution born from war, our ships gliding silently toward the shore. The city was quiet, nestled in the deepening twilight, its lights beginning to flicker like captured stars. The breeze carried the scent of wood smoke and roasted meat, a smell of home, but not our home. There was a stillness here, an unsettling peace. The men, weary from the sea, looked to the land with a mixture of longing and suspicion. The memory of battle was still fresh, a metallic taste in our mouths, and every shadow seemed to hold a threat. We made no move to land, simply watching from the water as night draped its cloak over the city. The sounds of life, a distant, muffled song. We were ghosts on their coasts, unseen and unheard. The current pulled us southward, and the wind, once our ally, grew fickle again, pushing us off our intended course. The sky turned a strange, hazy yellow, and the sun felt weak, its light diffused as if shining through milk glass. A thick, sweet-smelling mist began to roll over the waves, clinging to our ships, muffling sound and sight. The world shrank to the confines of our own vessels, the other ships in the fleet becoming mere phantoms in the fog. An unnatural drowsiness fell upon us. Men leaned heavily on their oars, their movements slow, their eyes happy. The sea itself seemed to be asleep, its surface smooth and oily, barely rising and falling. It felt as though we had sailed into a dream, a place where time stretched and warped. The desire to simply let go, to drift, was a potent temptation. A siren song, sung not with voice, but with silence and stillness. Through the dreamlike haze, another shore materialized. This one was different, lush, impossibly green, with strange, drooping trees that bore heavy, dark fruit. The air was thick with the scent of honey and blossoms, a cloying sweetness that made the head swim. This was the land of the Lotus-Eaters. A few small boats put out from the shore, not with weapons, but with offerings. The people were serene, their faces placid, their movements languid. They smiled, but their eyes were distant, as if seeing something far beyond us. They offered us their food, the lotus flower, its petals glistening with a strange nectar. Some of our men, driven by a hunger that gnawed deeper than the belly, accepted the gift. As they ate, a visible change came over them. The last vestiges of worry and grief smoothed from their brows. A slow, blissful smile spread across their lips. Their grip on their oars slackened, and their gaze turned inward, lost to a peaceful, private world. They no longer looked at the sea, or to their comrades, or to their long-lost shores of Ithaca. They looked at nothing, and in their emptiness, they seemed to have found everything. We called to them, but our voices seemed to come from a great distance, echoes from a life they no longer remembered. Their connection to us, to the journey, was dissolving like salt in water. They had found their harbor, a quiet eddy of contentment, and had no desire to return to the turbulent currents of our quest. Forcing them back onto the ships was like trying to awaken men from the deepest, most peaceful sleep. They did not struggle, but their bodies were leaden, their compliance devoid of will. As we dragged them from that shore of blissful forgetting, we could feel the divergence, the first real fracturing of our fellowship. Some paths, once joined, were now bending away from each other. We were leaving not just a place, but a part of ourselves, a possibility of peace we could not afford to embrace. The misty shores faded behind us, taking with them the men we had been. The quiet lapping of the waves against the hull was the only sound, a lonely rhythm in the vast, indifferent sea. The journey had changed its nature. It was no longer just about returning home, but about holding on to who we were along the way. The fire crackles low in the great cave, its light dancing softly across the damp stone walls, painting them in shifting shades of orange and deep shadow. Each pop and hiss of the burning wood is a small sound in the immense, sleeping quiet. Outside, the wind whispers over the island, a low, mournful song that carries the scent of salt and wild thyme through the cracks in the rock. The giant sleeps, his breaths like the slow, rhythmic pull of the tide, a deep rumbling that fills the cavern. You lie still, listening, your heart a soft drum against your ribs. The warmth of the fleece around you is a small comfort in the lingering chill. Every detail of the plan repeats in your mind, a silent chant against the darkness. It must be perfect, each movement precise, each step without sound. The lives of your men depend on this quiet cunning, this thread of hope spun in the belly of the beast. The olive stake, hardened in the fire's embers, waits in the shadows, its sharpened point, a promise of dawn. You can almost feel the weight of it in your hands. The rough bark, the heft of the wood. You see the motion in your mind's eye, the coordinated lift, the unified push, a single, decisive action born from desperate courage. The name you gave him, Nobody, echoes in the silence. A simple trick, a clever phantom. It hangs in the air, a shield woven from words, waiting to protect you. You wonder if his brothers, hearing his cries, are even now turning back to their own beds, shaking their heads at a nightmare that has no author. Soon, the first hint of gray will touch the mouth of the cave. The great stone will grind open, and the flock will be driven out to pasture. This is the final, most delicate part of the plan. You feel the thick, curly wool of the ram you will cling to, imagining its musky scent, the wiry texture of its fleece tangled in your fingers. You will become one with the animal, a shadow beneath its belly, moving with the slow, deliberate pace of the herd. Your breath is steady now, a slow and even rhythm matching the sleeping giants. You are no longer just a man trapped in a monster's lair. You are a weaver of fate, a patient hunter in the dark. You feel the soft, lanolin-rich fleece of the ram beside you, its warmth a living anchor. The flock shifts and murmurs in its sleep, a gentle, shuffling sound like waves lapping on a distant shore. Beneath the belly of the largest ram, you will hold your breath, your body tucked tightly against its warmth. You will feel the gentle sway of its walk, the soft press of its legs against your sides. The giant's hand, a rough and careless thing, will pass over the creature's back, feeling only the familiar wool, blind to the life hidden beneath. It is a terrifying, delicate dance. One sound, one slip, and all is lost. But fear has been burned away by the fire of necessity, leaving only a cold, clear focus. You listen to the sounds of the sleeping cave, a drip of water from the high ceiling, a single drop landing in a pool with a soft plink, the gentle sigh of a sleeping companion nearby. These small sounds are the soundtrack to your survival, a quiet lullaby in the monster's den. The air begins to change, a subtle shift from the deep, still black of night to the soft, pearlescent gray of pre-dawn. It seeps in through the unseen cracks, carrying a fresher, cooler scent of the sea. The giant stirs, a low-groan rumbling from his chest. The flock begins to awaken, a rustling and a soft bleating that grows with the light. The moment is approaching. You close your eyes, gathering your resolve, becoming nothing but muscle, will, and a prayer whispered to the dawn. You are ready. You are nobody, and you are about to walk into the light. The ram's side is warm, its breathing steady. You match your own to its rhythm, becoming a part of the flock, a silent passenger on the tide of wool and hooves, about to be released from this dark shore. The men, tired but hopeful, saw Yalia shrink into a blue dot on the horizon. Tucked safely in the ship's hold was the gift from Aeolus, a heavy oxhide bag, shimmering with a strange energy. Odysseus had explained the king's generosity. Inside this bag, all the contrary winds were imprisoned, leaving only the gentle west wind, Zephyr, to blow them straight home to Ithaca. For 9 days and 9 nights, the wind was their loyal servant, pushing their black ship over the wind-dark sea. Odysseus, ever vigilant, held the tiller himself, never sleeping, his eyes fixed on the horizon, his heart swelling with every league they crossed. He could almost taste the salt of Ithaca's air, feel the rough bark of its olive trees. On the 10th morning, a faint smudge appeared in the distance. It grew, sharpened, and became the unmistakable shape of their island home. They were so close, they could see men tending fires on the shore, their voices carrying faintly over the water. A profound exhaustion, mixed with overwhelming relief, finally washed over Odysseus. His grip on the tiller loosened, his eyelids grew heavy, and sleep, deep and dreamless, claimed him at last. But as the captain slept, suspicion, like a creeping vine, began to twist around the hearts of his crew. They gathered in hushed, resentful whispers. "What's in the bag?" one murmured, his eyes glinting with greed. "Gold and silver, no doubt," another hissed. Aeolus favored him. "While we return with empty hands, he brings home a king's ransom, a secret treasure." They looked at their sleeping leader, his face softened by dreams of home, and their envy curdled into a reckless plan. They saw not their captain who had fought for them, but a man hoarding fortunes. With clumsy, fumbling hands, they untied the silver cord, securing the bag. In that instant, their hope was undone. A hurricane of wind burst forth, a screaming, chaotic vortex of gales from every direction, warring with each other. The gentle Zephyr was overwhelmed. The ship was spun around like a child's toy, the sails tearing with a sound like thunder. The shores of Ithaca, once so close, were snatched away, receding into a cruel, mocking blur. The storm winds, now free and furious, blew to bike back the way they had come, erasing 9 days of progress in a single, desperate hour. Day was said, up defeated and ashamed, on the shores of Aeolia once more. Odysseus, his heart a cold stone in his chest, had to face the king again. But Aeolus's face was not one of pity. It was a mask of cold fury. He saw not unlucky sailors, but men cursed by the gods, men whose own folly had brought this upon them. "Begone," he roared, his voice echoing with the power of the winds. He commanded, "I will not help those whom the immortals despise." There was no arguing, no pleading. Driven from the island, they rowed now, their arms aching, their spirits broken. The sea was no longer their path home, but a vast, indifferent prison. For 6 more days and nights, they rode under a silent, empty sky, their food and fresh water dwindling. On the 7th day, they sighted a new land, a strange, towering harbor. The cliffs on either side so sheer and close they almost touched the sky, leaving only a narrow channel into a calm, circular basin. This was the land of the Laestrygonians. Weary and weary, Odysseus moored his own ship just outside the harbor's mouth, tying it to a rock, a nagging premonition, keeping him from entering the placid cove where the rest of his fleet had eagerly dropped anchor. He sent 3 men ashore to scout, to learn what people lived here. The men found a track that led them to a spring, where they met a young woman of immense size, a giantess, who pointed them toward her father's house. But the house was a place of horrors. They were greeted by her mother, a woman as large as a mountaintop, who immediately snatched one of the men, her intention terrifyingly clear. The other two fled, scrambling back toward the ships, their screams echoing off the cliffs. The king, Antiphates, and his people came pouring out of their city. They were not men, but a race of massive man-eating giants. They didn't launch ships. They stood on the cliff-tops and began hurling huge boulders down into the harbor. The sound was deafening, the splintering of wood, the cracking of stone, the panicked cries of men. The ships, trapped in the basin, were smashed to pieces. The Laestrygonians waded into the water, spearing the sailors like fish and carrying them off for their grim feast. From his vantage point, Odysseus watched in pure horror. Saw it all, slashing the mooring ropes with his sword. He screamed at his own crew to row for their lives. They bent their backs, the oars churning the water into a desperate foam, their faces masks of terror. His was the only ship to escape that cursed harbor. The other 11, with all their crews, were gone. They sailed on, not in relief, but in profound grief, mourning the friends they had lost to such a... The air grows still, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something ancient, like dust from a long-sealed tomb. The river before you is a sheet of polished obsidian, its black water so placid it perfectly mirrors the starless, gray sky above. There is no sound of current, no gentle lapping against the shore, only a profound, waiting silence. To ferryman his form a deeper shadow against the gloom, pulls the flat-bottomed boat with movements so slow and deliberate they seem to stretch time itself. Each dip of the oar into the inky water sends out silent, concentric rings that ripple outward until they disappear into the vast darkness. You drift past shores of pale, ghostly asphodel, their white petals glowing with a faint, internal light. They are the only source of luminescence here, besides the distant, flickering torches that drift like lost fireflies in the immense cavern of this realm. These torches, you understand, are carried by souls who have just arrived, their flames small and uncertain in the overwhelming twilight. Ahead, a figure waits on the far bank. His shape is indistinct at first, but as the boat glides closer, you see the long staff, the sightless eyes that seem to look through you and into the very fabric of fate. This is Tiresias, the blind seer. His presence a beacon of calm wisdom in this land of echoes. He doesn't speak as you approach, merely waits. His patience is deep and unmoving as the river itself. When your boat finally touches the shore with a soft, soundless bump, you step onto the silty bank. The ground is cool beneath your feet. Tiresias inclines his head, a gesture of acknowledgement. His voice, when it comes, is not a sound that strikes the ear, but a thought that blossoms directly in your mind, a voice like rustling leaves and shifting sand, measured and without urgency. He speaks of oaths, not the fiery declarations of the living, but the quiet, unbreakable vows of this place, inscribed on silver tablets that gleam faintly in the perpetual dusk. These are the promises that bind spirits to their paths, the silent agreements that maintain the delicate balance between memory and oblivion. His counsel is not of grand quests or heroic deeds, but of acceptance, of letting go, of understanding that every journey has its final, quiet destination. He advises you to listen not with your ears, but with your heart, to the subtle whispers of the shades who drift by. As he speaks, figures begin to coalesce from the mist. They move with a slow, ethereal grace, their forms translucent. You see heroes you recognize from legend, their armor now little more than a silvery sheen, their legendary swords resting weightlessly in their grasp. They do not boast of their victories. Instead, their eyes hold a profound peace, a release from the burdens of their glorious, violent lives. They drift past like autumn leaves on a gentle stream, their passing a soft sigh in the quiet air. Among them are others, mothers searching for the children they lost, their arms forever reaching, not in anguish, but in a gesture of eternal, gentle love. You see one shade, a woman with a kind, familiar face. Turn her head as if hearing a distant call. She glides towards another spirit, and they embrace, melting into one another for a moment before continuing their separate, silent walks. There is no weeping here, only a deep, resonant sense of reunion and continuity. Tiresias guides your attention to the floating torches again. He explains that each flame represents a life, and its journey through the underworld is a slow, meandering path towards its final rest. Some flicker brightly with lingering passions. Others burn with a soft, steady glow of contentment. They drift on unseen currents, lighting the way for those who follow, their soft light a promise that even in the deepest darkness, there is a path forward. You watch them, mesmerized, as they dance and sway in a silent ballet. Each one a story, a memory, a soul finding its way through the gentle, unending twilight. The seer's voice fades back into the silence, leaving you with a sense of profound tranquility, a quiet observer in this kingdom of serene shadows. You feel the weight of your own world lifting, replaced by the calm, measured rhythm of this place. The journey continues, not as a trial, but as a slow unfolding meditation. The murmur of the waves against the hull is a constant, gentle rhythm, a lullaby from the deep. Ahead, the sea stretches out, a vast expanse of shimmering silver under a pale moon. The air grows still, expectant. A new sound begins to weave itself into the soft splashing of the water. A melody so faint at first, you might mistake it for the wind sighing through the rigging. But it grows a chorus of voices rising from an unseen island, sweet and impossibly clear. This is the song of the sirens, a sound that promises everything your heart has ever longed for. It speaks of rest after long journeys, of knowledge beyond mortal understanding, of a peace so profound it feels like coming home. But you have been warned. You take the soft, golden beeswax, warming it in your hands until it's pliable, and carefully you press it into your ears. The enchanting melody fades, replaced by a muffled quiet, the world muted and distant. Your companions do the same, their faces serene, unaware of the beautiful, deadly music that fills the air. For you, the captain, there is another task. You must hear the song and survive it. Your crew approaches, ropes in hand. They bind you firmly to the great mast, knotting the ropes tight around your wrists, your waist, your ankles, until you are one with the ship. You nod, and they take to their oars, their powerful, rhythmic strokes, pulling the vessel steadily forward. And then the song washes over you, clear and perfect. It bypasses the mind and goes straight to the soul. The voices know you. They sing of your triumphs and your sorrows, of the battles you've won and the losses you still mourn. They promise an end to your wandering, a final, blissful stop. Every fiber of your being screams to go to them, to turn the ship towards that beckoning shore. You strain against the ropes, your muscles burning, your voice a raw shout that your crew cannot hear. You plead, you command, you beg them to release you. Your eyes fixed on the hazy outline of the island where the singers wait, but your men only row harder, their faces set, their trust in your earlier command absolute. They see your struggle, and two of them rise to add more ropes, binding you even tighter, until you can barely move. A prisoner on your own ship, the island drifts past, and slowly, achingly, the divine, heart-wrenching song begins to fade, leaving only the whisper of the sea and the ache of an unfulfilled, impossible promise. As the last note vanishes, the tension drains from your body, and you slump against the mast, exhausted but alive. Your crew, seeing your calm return, unseals their ears and comes to release you. The silence they emerge into is profound. The sea ahead changes. The open water funnels into a narrow, Treseros Strait. On one side, the cliffs rise sheer and black, slick with sea spray. A dark cave is carved into the rock face, and from it comes a sound like the yelping of a dozen hungry hounds. This is the lair of Scylla. The air around it is thick with dread. A place where sailors vanish without a trace, plucked from their decks by a horror that lives in the shadows. You steer the ship as far from that cliff as you dare, your heart pounding a heavy rhythm against your ribs. But the other side of the channel offers no safe harbor. There, the sea itself seems to be alive and breathing. The water swirls into a monstrous whirlpool, a gaping maw that sucks the ocean down into the earth's depths. 3 times a day, Charybdis inhales the sea, and 3 times she vomits it back out in a churning, boiling fury. To be caught in that vortex is to be utterly consumed, splintered into nothingness. There is no safe path, only a choice between 2 terrible fates. You grip the rudder, your knuckles white. You choose the cliff. You would rather lose a few than risk the entire ship and everyone on it. You keep your eyes fixed forward, your voice steady as you command your crew to row with all their might, to pull for the open water beyond. You don't tell them what waits in the cave. Fear would only slow their oars as you draw level with the dark opening. A shadow moves. 6 long, serpentine necks slash out from the cave, faster than the eye can follow. At the end of each neck is a grotesque head, snapping and snarling. Before anyone can even scream, 6 of your best men are lifted into the air, their legs kicking uselessly. You hear their desperate cries, their voices calling your name one last time as Scylla drags them back to her rocky den. It is the most pitiful thing you have ever witnessed, a sight of pure horror and helplessness. There is nothing to be done. You cannot fight the monster. You can only force yourself to look away. The garden on Ogygia remains still, a place outside of time, where the air is sweet with the scent of cypress and cedar burning softly on the hearth. A tapestry of life thrives untouched by the world beyond. Violet and parsley carpet, the soft earth around 4 springs that flow with clear, cool water, each one branching off to nourish the green meadows. Grapevines, heavy with dark, glistening clusters, climb the mouth of the cavern, their leaves a deep, glossy green. In this perfect, secluded paradise, even a god might pause and feel their heart fill with wonder. Here, time drifts like pollen on the breeze. The elders and black poplars stand as silent sentinels, their branches home to long-winged falcons and sharp-eyed owls. The shore is a curve of silver sand, meeting water so clear you can see the smooth, colorful pebbles on the seabed. There is no sound but the gentle lapping of waves and the distant cry of a seabird. The world outside, with its turmoil and its striving, is a forgotten dream. The air is warm, the light is soft, and a profound peace settles over everything. A peace that seeps into the very bones and whispers of rest. Into this quiet world, a flicker of gold descends. It is Hermes, the messenger, a streak of divine light against the blue sky. His golden sandals, which carry him over land and sea as fast as the wind, touch down without a sound upon the island's edge. He moves, not with haste, but with a deliberate grace, a ripple in the still pond of Ogygia. He's a thought from the outside world made manifest, a shimmering thread connecting this isolated haven to the grand tapestry of fate woven on Olympus. He carries a message, a turning of the page, a quiet signal that even in the most perfect stillness, change is the one constant current. The scent of the burning logs, the fragrance of the flowers, the murmur of the spring stay all greet him as he approaches the grotto. Calypso, her voice a melody, is weaving at her loom with a golden shuttle, the threads glinting like captured starlight. She looks up, her luminous eyes recognizing the divine messenger. A conversation unfolds, not of anger or sorrow, but of destiny. It is a quiet acceptance, a release. A great journey is about to begin again, not with a clash of swords, but with the felling of trees and the patient work of hands. The hero, his heart, a vessel of longing, sets to work. With a bronze axe, sharp and strong, he fells 20 trees, their woody scent rising into the calm air. He planes the timbers, smoothing their surfaces until they are like polished stone, and joins them with skill and precision. He builds a raft, broad and sturdy, fit to cross the wind-dark sea. He raises a mast, fits a yard arm, and fashions a steering oar to guide his way. Calypso provides the sail, a cloth of fine, strong linen, and stocks the vessel with provisions, water, wine, and food to sustain him on his voyage home. He pushes the raft into the soft, green waves. A gentle breeze, sent by the goddess, fills the sail, and the small craft begins to move, gliding away from the shore of Ogygia. The island, his beautiful, lonely prison for 7 long years, slowly recedes, shrinking until it is just a speck of green against the vast expanse of the sea. For 17 days he sails, steering by the stars, his gaze fixed on the Pleiades, the Bear, and Orion. Following the course Calypso had set, the sea is calm, a gentle, rolling expanse of turquoise and sapphire, the waves rocking the raft like a cradle. But the sea is fickle. A storm gathers, dark clouds swallowing the sky, and the gentle waves rise into furious, mountainous peaks. The raft is tossed and broken, its timbers scattered by the wind and water. He clings to a single plank, a lone survivor in the raging chaos. It is then, in his darkest moment, that a new light appears. Ino of the slim ankles, once a mortal woman, now a goddess of the sea, rises from the foam. She pities his struggle and offers him her veil, a shimmering, immortal scarf. She tells him to abandon the wreckage and tie the veil around his chest. It will keep him afloat and bring him safely to shore. He hesitates, but the sea gives him no choice. A colossal wave shatters the last of his raft, and he is thrown into the churning water. He binds the sacred veil around himself, and a strange buoyancy fills him. For 2 days and 2 nights, he is adrift, carried by the currents, his strength failing but his hope sustained by the divine fabric. The storm subsides, the sea grows calm once more, and on the dawn of the 3rd day, he sees it land. It is the coast of the Phaeacians, misty and green, rising from the sea like a promise. Exhausted, he finds a river mouth, a place where the water runs smooth and the shore is free of sharp rocks. He prays to the river god, who hears him and stills the current, allowing him to swim to the bank. He collapses on the reeds, his body battered but his spirit unbroken. He unties the magical veil and, as instructed, casts it back into the river, where it is carried by the current back to Ino's waiting hands. He finds a thicket of wild olive and thorn, a natural shelter, and burrows into a deep pile of fallen leaves. The bed is warm and welcoming as any made by human hands. As sleep overtakes him, a profound peace settles upon him. The struggles of the sea fade away, replaced by the deep, as dawn painted the Phaeacian shores in soft hues of rose and gold. Nausicaa awoke in her chamber. The light, gentle and new, filtered through the high windows, stirring her from dreams of the stranger she had guided to her father's hall. There was a quiet hum of activity in the palace as preparations began for the day, a day that promised departure and farewell. In the great hall, the last embers of the previous night's fire glowed softly. It was here that Odysseus had sat, a guest of honor, listening to the blind minstrel deep. The poet's voice, a gentle, resonant reber, had flowed through the hall, weaving tales of heroes and gods, of Troy's distant, sorrowful fields. The listeners, their faces lit by the flickering firelight, had been carried away by the music and the words, their own lives momentarily forgotten in the tide of ancient song. The Phaeacians, lovers of the sea and the stories it carried, had honored their guests not just with tales, but with gifts of friendship. The next morning, under the soft morning sun, they held gentle games on the green lawns overlooking the sea. There was no fierce competition, but a graceful display of skilled discus throws that arced like soaring birds, foot races swift and light as the wind. Odysseus, watching from the shade of an olive tree, felt a quiet ache for his own home, his own people. He accepted their challenges with a gentle smile, his strength held in reserve, his mind already turning towards the horizon. Princess Nausicaa, with a shy grace, presented him with a finely woven tunic, her gaze a mixture of admiration and a soft, unspoken farewell. King Alcinous and Queen Artai filled a seat chest with treasures gleaming bronze tripods, robes of intricate design and talents of gold, a king's ransom to see him home. When the time for parting came, the sky was a canvas of deepening twilight, sprinkled with the first shy stars. The Phaeacian ship, swift and black, sat waiting in the harbor, its crew silent and ready. The vessel was unlike any Odysseus had ever known, moving as if guided by thought alone, cutting through the wind-dark sea with supernatural speed. As he lay on the deck, wrapped in soft linens and a deep, enchanted sleep, the ship sailed on. A silent arrow aimed the heart of Ithaca. The stars wheeled overhead, a familiar, comforting map, guiding him homeward under their silent, watchful eyes. The journey was a dream, a peaceful passage between worlds, from the magical realm of Scaria to the rugged, longed-for shores of his own kingdom. He awoke on a beach, shrouded in a thick, magical mist, disoriented and alone. The Phaeacian ship was gone, vanished as if it had never been. The treasures lay beside him on the sand, as the mist slowly began to thin, revealing a familiar gnarled olive tree and a sacred grotto. A figure approached him, a young shepherd, his face open and friendly. But Odysseus, wary after so many years of trial, felt a prickle of caution. The shepherd was, in fact, the goddess Athena. Her eyes twinkling with a familiar, divine intelligence. She gently chided him for his endless suspicion. Her voice, a comforting balm. With a wave of her hand, the last of the mist dissolved, and Odysseus saw his homeland, Ithaca, spread out before him. Rugged and beautiful, exactly as he had held it in his memory. A wave of emotion, deep and overwhelming, washed over him. Was home. Athena, ever the strategist, helped him hide the treasure in the sacred cave of the nymphs. Then, with a touch of her wand, she transformed him. His strong limbs became gnarled and frail. His dark hair turned to a few wisps of white, and his sea-bright eyes grew dim. She dressed him in tattered rags, making him into a poor, forgotten old beggar. It was a necessary disguise, she explained, for his house was full of arrogant suitors, vying for his wife's hand and consuming his wealth. He had to move with caution, to learn the lay of the land before revealing himself. She directed him inland, towards the rustic heart of the island, to the swineherd's hut. "Go to Eumaeus," she said. "He has remained loyal to you in your house. His heart is good and true. He will give you shelter." Following her directions, Odysseus began the slow, shuffling climb up the rocky path. The air was filled with a familiar sense of wild thyme and sun-baked earth. Every rock, every twisted olive tree, was a piece of his own soul returned to him. As he approached the isolated steading, the sound of dogs barking ferociously split the quiet air. They rushed at him, ready to tear him apart, but a loud, commanding voice called him off. A man emerged from a well-built hut of stone and timber. He was weathered and kind-faced, his eyes holding a deep, abiding sadness. This was Eumaeus, the loyal swineherd. He saw only a poor, wandering old man, and, without hesitation, invited him inside, offering him a place by the fire and a share of his simple meal. "Come in, old father," he said, his voice rough but gentle. "It's not right to turn away a stranger, no matter how humble. Every guest comes from Zeus." Inside the small, smoky hut, a fire crackled, casting a warm, flickering light on the walls. The scent of roast. The young man Telemachus walks through the familiar halls, but they feel different now. The air, once heavy with the boisterous shouts and demands of unwanted guests, now holds a quiet hum of anticipation. He moves with a newfound purpose, his shoulders straighter, his gaze steady. He is no longer just the boy of the house, lost in the shadow of a long-absent fater. He is a partner in a secret, a silent keeper of a monumental truth. Every corner he turns, every servant he passeth, is seen through a new lens. The lens of a plan whispered in the dim light of a humble swineherd hut. He feels the weight of it, but it's a strengthening weight, like a well-made cloak settling upon him, a mantle of responsibility he is finally ready to wear. Later, in the quiet of the storage rooms, lit by the flickering dance of a single candle, the two of them work, side by side. The stranger, his face etched with the lines of 1,000 sea miles and 100 battles, moves with a silent, powerful grace. He is disguised, a beggar in his own home, yet his presence fills the space. As they gather the shields and spears, their hands occasionally brush. In these fleeting moments, a current of recognition passes between them, an unspoken acknowledgement that needs no words. Telemachus looks at the stranger's hands, strong, scarred, capable, and sees not a beggar, but a king. The stranger looks at the young man's determined face and sees not a boy, but the heir to his legacy. The candlelight catches the glint in their eyes, a shared understanding in the hushed, dusty air. It is a reunion not of grand declarations, but of quiet certainty, a bond reforged in the shadows, stronger than any bronze. As they emerge from the storerooms and cross the courtyard, a flicker of movement near the gates catches the stranger's eye. Lying on a pile of refuse, almost lost to the world, Isan Old Dog. His coat is matted, his body frail, but as the stranger approaches, the dog's head lifts. An ear twitches. It is Argus, the hound he trained as a puppy so many years ago. The dog's tail gives a single, weak thump against the ground. He recognizes his master, even through the rags and the long, weary years. As waited. He has been loyal through seasons of neglect and loneliness, holding on to a scent, a memory. The stranger's heart aches, a profound sorrow mixing with a deep, abiding gratitude for this one creature's unwavering faith. He cannot show his grief, cannot kneel and embrace his old friend, for the secret must be kept. He sheds a single, hidden tear as he walks past, a silent farewell to the truest heart in his kingdom. Argus, his long watch finally over, lets his head sink back to the ground, content. Upstairs, in her chambers, Penelope sits before her loom. The threads are a tapestry of her own making, a story of delay and defiance. By day, she weaves the grand burial shroud, her fingers moving with practiced, melancholic grace. The suitors watch, impatient but placated by her solemn promise to choose a husband once it is finished. They do not see her at night, when the moon is high and the house is still. They do not see her unpicking the day's work, her slender fingers carefully pulling each thread free, unraveling her progress, buying another day, another night, another sliver of hope. It is a quiet rebellion, a testament to a love that is not faded with time. Each undone stitch is a prayer for a return she can barely dare to imagine anymore. The loom is her shield, her strategy, her silent vow of fidelity in a hall filled with noise and broken promises. Her mind is a fortress of cleverness. When the beggar, this intriguing stranger with knowing eyes, is brought before her, she does not see just a wanderer. She sees a potential source of news. A test. She speaks to him, her voice calm and regal, but her questions are sharp, like carefully aimed arrows. She asks about his travels, about the world beyond her island prison. She speaks of her husband Odysseus, weaving a story to see if the stranger will catch the threads. She describes a brooch, a particular cloak, details only someone who truly knew him would recognize. The stranger answers with perfect, heartbreaking accuracy, describing the very items she pictures in her mind. Her heart flutters. A dangerous hope taking root is it possibly. Could this man, this ragged storyteller, hold the key? It is a test within a test. A queen's. The whole falls into a profound quiet, a silence so deep it feels like the world is holding its breath. The heavy bow rests in his hands, familiar as a phantom limb. His fingers, rough and calloused, trace the smooth, worn wood, remembering its every curve and imperfection. It is a reunion, a quiet conversation between a man and an object that holds the memory of his youth, his strength, his very essence. He moves with an unhurried grace, a stark contrast to the boisterous men who had strained and failed before him. There is no show of effort, no grunt of exertion. He simply lifts the bow, and as he does, the room seems to shrink, focusing all light and shadow on his solitary figure. He hooks the string into the nock, a simple, fluid motion. Then, he draws it back. The string comes towards his cheek without a sound, a whisper of taut gut and seasoned you. It is as effortless as a musician drawing a bow across a cello. A single, perfect note held in the ringing silence. His gaze is fixed, not on the boisterous crowd, but through the line of 12 axe heads, a narrow corridor of bronze and air. The arrow is nocked, a slim shaft of wood tipped with a glint of metal. For a heartbeat, all is still. Then, with a release as soft as a sigh, the arrow is gone. It does not whistle. It glides. It passes through the first axe head, then the second, and the third, a phantom of motion, a streak of faded wood and metal, until it has passed through all 12, untouched, and embeds itself gently in the far wall of the hall. A collective muffled gasp ripples through the room, but it is quickly swallowed by the overwhelming stillness. He lowers the bow. Its purpose served, and in that moment, the disguise of the old vagrant seems to fall away. Not in a dramatic flash, but like mist, burning off. In the morning sun, the stooped shoulders straighten. The weary eyes clear, revealing a depth of storms and stars. The beggar is gone, and in his place stands the master of the house. There is no great cry of recognition, no shouts of his name. Instead, a slow, dawning awareness spreads. His wife, Penelope, watches him. Her face a mask of disbelief and fragile hope. Her heart, so long guarded, feels a tremor, a loosening of the ice that has encased it for 2 long decades. Is it him? After all this time, can it truly be him? Justice unfolds not with the clang of swords, but with the quiet inevitability of a tide turning. The guilty are met with a silence more damning than any accusation. The whole is cleared with a somber, deliberate purpose, a cleansing of a space that had been desecrated by arrogance and disrespect. There are no shouts, only the quiet understanding that an old order has been swept away and a new, or rather, an ancient one, has been restored. Later, in the quiet of the upper chambers, the reunion is tentative, whispered. 20 years is a chasm of time. They are strangers, remade by loneliness and hardship. How do you bridge such a distance? Penelope, ever cautious, ever clever, devises one final test. A question only the true king could answer. She speaks of their marriage bed, suggesting it be moved. A faint smile touches his lips, the first real smile he has shown. He speaks of the bed, his voice low and steady. He describes how he built it himself, how it could never be moved. For one of its posts was not mere wood, but the living trunk of a great olive tree, still rooted deep in the earth, around which he had built their entire bedroom, their home, their world. It is a secret known only to them, the living heart of their union. And with these words, the last wall around Penelope's heart crumbles into dust. The tears that come are not of sorrow, but of a profound, soul-shaking release. It is a quiet homecoming, a rediscovery of a love that had been buried but never lost. As the first light of dawn spills over the hills of Ithaca, it paints the sea in shades of pearl and rose. The island awakens to a new day, yet it feels ancient, as if it has finally returned to itself. The air is still, filled with a sense of peace and a quiet, lingering mystery. The long night is over, but the story of the morning, of all the mornings to come, is just beginning to be written. The world feels balanced once more, held in the gentle light of a new dawn. Thank you for joining me in this quiet space. I hope this story has brought you a measure of peace and tranquility. If you enjoyed this journey, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more peaceful nights. May your rest be deep and your dreams be sweet. Good night.